offices are you going to run for? I can think of several. Yeah, I can think of several. Okay. So you've got this little handout coming your way and a 3x5 card. So I'm not very good at standing in front of a microphone because I'm a teacher and I like to be involved and engaged. So first of all, thank you for coming. Are you all having fun? You're learning stuff? Yes? Thank you. Good to hear your voices. All right. So like Wally, I'm also one of the signatories on a document that a group of university faculty members have signed on to because, as Wally suggested, you know, the pressure on everyone, parents, teachers, university faculty, is increasing. And if you have that little flyer that I gave you, you'll see one of my favorite cartoons, Privatizing America's Public Schools, the Magic of the Market at Work. And don't be fooled, folks, that lots of people have their hands in our pockets. When Horace Mann started the public education model in 1830, it was a huge experiment. And there was lots of dissension about whether or not people, normal, everyday people, should take their hard-earned money and educate everybody in the country. And now, we don't think anything of that. Those of us who support public education, we just have come to believe that. But there are lots of individuals who still don't support that idea because they want to have the money that goes into public schools to be part of their private enterprise. And so remember this little cartoon when you get it. It's how public money is becoming for profit. But there's a voice that's missing from this conversation today and for part of the, for some of the other conversations, and that's the voices of our children. In the 1900s, a Polish educator, medical doctor by the name of Janusz Korczak, who was the person who saved thousands of children, ran the orphanages in the ghetto in Warsaw, and actually went to Treblinka with those kids and was killed. He was sort of the John Dewey of Eastern Europe, and his perspective was that the role of the child is so important that he was the author of the Geneva Convention. And the Geneva Convention ended up being the document that then funded the Declaration of the Rights of Children, which has been signed on to by every nation except ours. We'll get back to that point in a moment. And so what was so your 3x5 card, if you're starting to think about this, to follow on what Larry was saying, what is your goal? What do you want your public hard-earned money to do for the children of the United States? What is your expectation for what public education is going to do for them? Whether there's Common Core, or whether there's standardized testing, or all the standards we had before the Common Core, and all the standards we had before that, and everything we've had that have come from someplace out there, really starting under Reagan's administration with the nation at risk, starting to very loudly blame public education for all the flaws that have happened in the world. Public education should solve poverty, it should solve immigration issues. Obviously, public education has a very difficult time to do that. But what does that Declaration of Children's Rights say? It says in two different places, children have the right for to have their own opinion, and they have a right to express that opinion. It's my experience, and this is my 14th year in education, it's my experience that we don't listen to our children. We don't even believe that children have a voice. We don't believe that children should be engaged in the discussions about what they should learn. No children were part of the conversation about the Common Core development or any other standard development or any curriculum design. Children are not part of the conversation. You have a math question right here on this piece of paper. You tell me the answer to this, and then you ask the children you have in your life what they would answer. How can you use objects to show 15 as 10 ones and some more ones and show 15 as a number? Now, those of you that know number theory know that this isn't even appropriate language, right? And what's the answer? And who cares? Who cares? If you need to figure out your math, we all now have calculators on our phones, right? I don't have to figure out what did you say, 600 times 6, what was it? 6 million. So we can all figure, and we'll ask, Siri, she'll tell us, right? So my greater concern is who is missing from this conversation? Who is not part of the concern? What would happen, as has happened in international countries, where children, young people, have said, no, we're not doing this. We're not going to be part of this. It's not just the parents' responsibility. It's not just the adult's responsibility. It's the consumer. And if we had a perspective that children had the right to understand what's being done to them, then maybe when you sit down and think about the dispositions that Larry was talking about, then young people would be saying, no. You know, the few adults in places like Palos Verdes, wonderful community, wonderful school district, who are going to opt out their kids, that's great. It's not going to happen in East LA. It's not going to happen in East LA. Why? Because, as you suggested, the price that a parent might pay for being that visible and saying, I'm not going to let my kid take the test, might get that parent deported, might get that parent in a position where they lose the kid. But the kids are here. The kids know what's happening to them, and we silence them. We silence them all the time. But in the world, they have the right to their opinion. They have the right to act on that opinion. Imagine what would happen if our children stood up, if we gave them permission to stand up. Not just homeschool them, but you know, we have an amazing country. Look what's happening with the young people right now coming out to support candidates in the United States. Why does that happen? Because we live in a nation where we believe that our young people have value. But the school system and folks like Arne Duncan, and we can name all the folks that have been named here, they don't support that. They don't support a nation of outspoken young people. And that's, for me, the goal for my grandchildren. I don't have any great-grandchildren yet. I'm not quite that old. But for my grandchildren, that's what I want. I want them to be active democratic citizens. And you'll see, as an educator, as a researcher, all these documents. Here's the CARED, California Alliance for Research. What do we say at the end of this? We say, our country is founded on democratic principles that undergird our educational system and the very innovation we are known for throughout the world. Our children carry that legacy forward. Our children are the folks who take that legacy and say, this is what we're going to do with it. Common Core tests. Why the opt-out movement isn't losing steam? Because young people across the country are standing up against it. Standardized testing costs the state $1.7 billion a year. Why are we allowing that to happen? Why are we allowing that to happen? They raise your taxes, what do you do? This is the piece from A Nation at Risk. Standardized tests as metrics for mediocrity. The testing resistance and reform movement. On the handout I've left you with, I'm introducing you to all my heroes. I'm introducing you to Wayne Al. I'm introducing you to Jesse Hagopian. I'm introducing you to Fair Test, to the folks across the nation who are trying to get us all organized and are speaking to young people. Jesse Hagopian is a high school teacher and Jesse, and I have 2 of his books here, More Than a Score, if anybody's interested in taking one along, and Wayne Al's book, Pencils Down from Rethinking Schools. There are many organizations that are trying to help young people understand what's going on for them and to have them also be responsible if we want them to be publicly engaged. I have a dear colleague, Yetta Goodman. Yetta and her husband Ken are sort of the founders of the whole language movement. And Yetta and I, we were at a conference, and those of you who are women know that if you go to a conference, sometimes there's long lines for the bathroom, right? So we're standing in line, and Yetta says, well, isn't it ridiculous to think that someone is going to be a good decision maker at age 18 when from kindergarten to age 17, they've been told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, where to do it, and if they do it wrong, they're in trouble. That's what needs to change. Common Core is just an indication of that model that we have. Common Core is going to be replaced with something else. Yes, maybe it'll be a slow death, but those folks over here who want to make money from us are going to find another way to do it. In fact, Steve Krashen just sent an email, if I have it here someplace. He just sent an email today that talked about Steve Krashen is a retired faculty member from USC in language arts, and Steve is a very active He writes an op-ed piece almost every day and sends it off. He's a voice. This is what came from Peggy Robertson, who's writes a piece. She says, the passage of ESSA means that at the end of your test eventually could become passé. Doesn't that sound like good news? Yay. However, ESSA is pushing for online daily testing that is embedded inside online curriculum. Children will now be subjected to online modules in which they must master something before moving on to the next online module. And they'll be able to do that because all the school boards have had to buy computers for everybody and set up internet, so now everybody has access. It might be called personalized learning, so listen for these new keywords. Mastery learning, proficiency-based testing, competency-based education. That's a big one right now. Everybody's doing competency-based education. Innovative assessments. ESSA is pushing for these online assessments, as is ALEC and the many foundations and organizations that are hoping to cash in. So without us speaking, with us being silent, with us saying, well, no, something else will come along. I don't think Common Core is so bad. What I think is wrong with Common Core is that it didn't come from educators. And just like that book I just gave you, my pre-service teachers, first, second, third year teachers, are struggling to try and figure out what to do because the materials aren't there, they're not getting trained, and they're doing it on their own time. And so the uneven distribution of this, even if there's good stuff in there, is hard to tell because it's not, there's no safe agenda for the process. But mark my words, if we do not stay subversive in our understanding of who's making decisions about our children, and we're not including them in the decisions that are being made for them, then next year it'll be something else. And John will be here yelling about something, and Wally will be standing here talking about something else, and it will be us going, oh, wow, that's gee. And by the way, the good news is, yes, Finland's doing quite well, but I spend a lot of time in other places in the world. I've lived in Bosnia for 6 months. We also, this is the good news for us. In the United States, our kids are doing pretty well. They really are. We have all these test results that show they're doing poorly. You know your kids. Look around at the kids your kids hang out with. Look at what's happening in the world. We've got great kids in this country. We've got kids who are smart, who care about things. And so those test scores don't describe anything. What describes them is their heart. And if we help them have stronger hearts to stand up for what they believe in, to understand what it means to live in a democratic society, this will just pass on and something else will follow it. But we have to get organized. And I want to introduce you to my little friend here. So we have to help them stand up. Just go right to John. Look at that. This is smart person. We know. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being interested. Thank you for caring about your kids. We all care about all the kids, every one of them. We don't want to lose any of them. And so if you have questions, please let me know. And follow the work that's being done by all these fabulous, fabulous people. Joan, I want to thank you for how you stand up for all of us. And I also want to introduce you to Larry. Larry is someone here as a fabulous resource. Please make sure you meet him before you leave. Larry has years of experience and is well connected to the deep aspects of what opting out is about, because it's not just about not taking the test. Opting out is about standing up for what we know is good for our kids. Thank you.